Okay, so first of all, a little bit of background on me. I work at Griffith University. I'm one of the lecturers there in the School of ICT. So that should tell you that my project management area is information technology. I'm a lecturer now, but my background is actually in industry. In industry, I started out as a business analyst. I moved into the user experience field. So unlike a lot of IT people, my interest is always in the people rather than the technology, which kind of meant project management was then a fairly natural progression for me. Because let's face it, with project management, you're managing a lot of logistics around projects, but really what you're doing is managing people. So it was a natural progression for me. But today I'm going to be talking to you about change management because, change, it never happens. If you want to make enemies, try and change something. And one of the reasons that's the case is people. We're the ones who tend to make change a fairly awkward thing, and we're the ones who tend to get in the way of a fairly successful change. Okay, we're talking about change, so let's talk about what we're talking about, because there's actually two different sides to it. First of all, there's change control. Now, this is what you do when you're managing change inside your project. So as project managers, that's what you've got to do. Now, this is when your client decides they want to change the scope, or somebody goes off on maternity leave and all of a sudden you need to redo your entire schedule, or new legislation comes in and your budget needs to change completely. Change control is all about those kinds of things. That's managing the change that's happening inside your project as it's running. Then you've got change management. I tend to call it big picture change, because that's what happens when you need to actually roll out your finished project into the organisation, the business, the environment, whatever it happens to be. That's a slightly different process, because for that one you've generally got to take the current way that people are doing something and make the changes to however they've got to do it now with whatever your new project is delivering. Now, obviously for IT, this is a very big area for us, because 9 times out of 10, we're either introducing a brand new system that's never been used, and what could go wrong with that, or we're taking something that is already the way people do things and making them do it completely differently. Because, no one's going to have issues with that at all, are they? So just to let you know that when we're talking about change, this is what we're talking about. How that applies for you guys, well, it's going to vary, but the tools and techniques you use are going to be slightly different, whether you're talking about change control or change management, and we'll have a quick look at both. So, having had a look at the outline of what you guys have covered so far today, I see that you should have looked at structuring your project, looked at your timeframes, and I believe you had just been looking at work breakdown structures. Just done the charter, cool. So you've got everything fairly laid out, right? Everything's going to run perfectly, right? Right? Now, the simple truth is that Helmuth didn't actually say exactly these words. He said something far more verbose, which has since been shortened into the rather pithy expression that no plan survives contact with the enemy, but the sentiment is the same. Because the problem is we can make all these plans and everything's all structured and clear, but then as soon as you start putting them into action and people start coming into the equation and interacting with your plan, the best laid plans tend to disappear. It happens a lot in IT, because one of the things that happens is that, say we're developing a project which needs an interface, because it's IT, it needs an interface. So you've got all of the requirements set out, it's all documented, it's all laid down. You draw up your first interface as to what it's going to look like and how people are going to interact with it, and you put it in front of your client, and they go, that's fantastic. Now, can we make it do this and this and this and this, and can we change it to pink, and can we move these buttons around? And then all of a sudden, all of your scope's completely gone out the window. So for us, this particular sentiment is very, very apt, but it's true with anybody, because you're dealing with people. And we are very, very messy creatures. So how you manage change, that's what's going to separate your project from being successful to being something of a disaster. We're not talking Hindenburg disaster. Well, I guess we could be, really. It could be that bad. Now, the key thing is, how are you going to manage those changes? How are you going to control what's going on? How are you going to make things happen as smoothly as possible? Okay, so you're thinking about how you might manage a change within your project. Say it's the example I just gave. You've just shown somebody from your product, they've said, can we change this particular thing? So they've come to you with a change. What are you going to do? What would be the first thing you might do if someone requests a change to your project? Say no. Say no. I have worked with project managers who take the very simple approach of just saying no. Say you need to go a little bit deeper than that. Where might you start? Ask why. That is really, really good. You need to know why they want to implement the change, because that's going to give you an idea as to whether or not this is a benefit or what the actual advantage is that it's going to bring to your product. What else might you need to do?
Yes, but it'll cost you more.
Yes. Cost is a big factor. As soon as you start talking change, chances are you are talking a change to the budget, no matter what the actual change is that's been requested. What else? Sorry? Get it in writing. That's actually the first thing you should do. As soon as somebody requests a change, make it official, get it in writing. Try to get them to put down the reasons and the detail if you can. So there's a really simple form, a change request form, and you can give it, here you go, have the form, give me as much detail as you can. Now that's often almost as effective as just saying no, because it makes people think, do I really want this change? But they need to write it down. Now within your change request form, you're going to have things like, what is it you want to change? What's the business case behind the change? Be as specific as you can. You can even ask them to identify any budgetary or scheduling issues that they may be aware of. They might not be able to tell you that. That might be your job. Okay, you've got it in writing. What happens next? Investigate. You need to have a look at everything they've asked for, and you need to look at what the outcome is going to be. What is the impact going to be on your project? You need to evaluate their request. Then what do you need to do? That's it. It's really simple. It's a very simple, straightforward process. Once you've actually done your evaluation, then you decide, well, is this a change we're actually going to approve, or is this a change we're going to reject? No matter what you decide, you then need to advise that outcome. You need to advise it to the person who made the request in the first place. You need to keep records of this within your project. You're thinking change logs and databases and all of that sort of thing. If the change is approved, you then need to advise all of the affected stakeholders. So whoever needs to actually make the change, whoever needs to control your budget and your schedule if you're not the person directly doing that. All of the affected stakeholders need to be advised. But this is the very simple process that you would use for controlling change within your project. Now, instead of just saying no, a lot of the time, tempting though that is, one of the responses is to say, well, yes, we can make this change happen, and it is going to cost you this many $100,000, and it's going to take us an extra 6 months to complete the project. It's amazing how quickly people often decide, I don't need the change that badly. But in the end, it's their choice. You're the project manager, so you know what the outcome's going to be, you know what the effect is going to be, but you are not the client. You're not the person who is going to be stuck with this project once you're finished 9 times out of 10, and in the end, it's going to be their choice. So this is change control. Now we're going to look at change management, the big picture stuff that I was talking about. And this is where people really come into the picture. There are a lot of different frameworks and models that you can use to actually make these kinds of changes within organisations. I'm not going to bore you to tears with all of them. This one is actually based off one. It's McKinsey's 7S framework. And it's called 7S for fairly obvious reasons, I would think. He was imaginative. What can I say? But the thing I like about it is that it doesn't look at change in terms of, well, what changes do we need to make to this or that? It looks at changes from the point of view of the difference it makes to people, because we're the ones who determine whether or not a change is going to occur successfully. So it looks at, first of all, from the organisation's point of view, what is the structure of the organisation? What kind of strategy does the organisation have? What systems does the organisation already have in place? And then it looks at, okay, now let's look at the people. What skills do we have with the people who are going to have to be dealing with this? What's the style? What's the management style, the organisational style? With style, you're thinking culture. What's that exists within this particular organisation? And of course, the staff. Exactly who is it who are going to have to use whatever this new system, new product, new project is that you're putting in place? And amongst all of that, you're looking at the core of the shared values. Where are the connections between all of these? So in terms of managing big picture change management, you're looking at all of these different attributes and factors and looking at just what impact your project is going to have on each of these. And 9 times out of 10, you can change an organisation strategy, you can change an organisation structure, you can put new systems in place, but it's the people who are going to determine whether or not things work well or don't. And this is where the different challenges come in. Because while we all know that change is inevitable, what people do with that change is completely optional. Change should involve growth. Bringing in a new project, a new product, a new system. This should be done for the benefit of the organisation, the business, society, whatever it happens to be. But that is often not the case. I worked for one particular client, and I have to express this very, very carefully to make sure I don't give anything away. One particular project that I worked on involved a private consultancy company, a large public service organisation. So first of all, you've got 2 very different cultures coming in head to head. So the public service organisation wanted to change one of its core systems. They needed new technology to back it up, so that was fairly straightforward. But they figured, well, while we're putting in this new technology, maybe we can make the system better. Maybe we can make some changes. So they came to us wanting these changes put in place. And so we went, great, let's go for it. And we started working on this new stuff, and every single thing we took to them, oh, can we just change this to that? And can we just change that? They didn't really want a new system. What they wanted was something that was identical to their old system, just running on new technology. Can we have it brand new, but exactly the same, please? Now, it took 6 to 12 months to work that out, because they were still saying, we want something new, we want it exciting, we want to make it different and better, when that wasn't actually what they wanted at all. And if we'd had the chance to just have the right people sit down together and talk that through, we would have saved a whole heap of money and an awful lot of development time and given them what they wanted right up front. But, you know, lesson learned, people are amazing. And one of the reasons that people are amazing is because it doesn't matter how good a change is going to be, what benefits it's going to bring, there are always going to be some downsides for somebody. And that's where the people come in, because we don't tend to be very good at change. We don't tend to like change very much, and we tend to resist change quite a bit. Unless we choose to make the change. So anybody who's decided to sell a house and buy a new one, you're generally doing that because you really want that new house, and that's a great change. IT people are weird because we love the fact that technology changes all the time, and I know that drives most people who aren't in IT nuts, and I'm sorry. It's something we absolutely love about our industry. But it's one of the problems, because the people who are developing the technology forget that people who aren't in IT don't feel the same way. And so all of those upgrades and changes that come through on your tech and your systems have been done by somebody who thinks you're going to love it and has no idea that you're sitting there fuming, wanting to throw your iPad at the wall. Change resistance is human nature, particularly when it comes to business systems and the way that you're currently doing the way you work. You know what you need to do. You can come into the office, you can sit down, you can do your job in no time flat. I come in as the IT person saying, I've got this fabulous new system for you. You're going to have to change absolutely everything you currently do, but it's going to be so much faster and so much more efficient, and you are going to look daggers at me and wish me to the very devil. It's okay, it's happened before, I'm used to it. But this is the problem. How do you then introduce whatever it is that your project is going to deliver, whatever product you're developing? How do you introduce that into that kind of a situation and make it as comfortable as possible for all sides? I have worked on projects where we have developed systems that are legitimately going to make a massive difference, but the kickback that we get from the people who have to use it is so high that the projects will fail and the systems will fold. And then you end up with a really, really messy situation. And that will happen because that change management process, that process of kicking over to the new system, was just not handled very well or very effectively. You have to consider these kinds of things. It doesn't matter how good your project is or how hot your product is that you're developing. Not everybody is going to like it. And you have to be prepared for that.